You know all this talk about those weird lights over New Jersey, the
Yeah.
ones the government's being all hush-hush about?
Right.
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Interesting.
We've got some sources
Okay.
that might give us a clue about why the official explanations are so, well,
Yeah.
vague.
It definitely got a lot of people curious,
Mhm.
wondering, if it's some kind of fancy drones or
Right.
secret technology or even,
Yeah,
something even stranger,
out there. Yeah.
like aliens.
But before we get carried away with all that,
Okay.
there's a much simpler explanation we should look at.
Hmm.
Counterintelligence.
Counterintelligence. That sounds kind of serious.
Yeah.
Like spy stuff?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It's all about keeping important information safe, protecting national security,
I see.
especially when it comes to technology.
Okay.
Think about it.
Mm.
If the government told everyone exactly how they track these unidentified objects in our airspace.
That could give away secrets to other countries
Okay.
who might want to use that information against us.
So it's not just about what they're seeing up there.
Right.
It's about protecting their own methods. Right.
Exactly. Imagine, say, some foreign country wants to test our defenses, see how good our radar is.
Right.
Or maybe if they could slip a drone past us unnoticed.
Yeah.
Any detail the government reveals, even if it seems small,
Okay.
it could be used to figure out weaknesses in our system.
So it's like giving away the keys to your security system.
You got it.
But wouldn't this silence actually make people more suspicious?
Yeah,
Like make them think they're hiding something really big?
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
They're trying to balance reassuring people
Right.
while also not giving away anything that could compromise security.
I see what you mean. So counterintelligence is one possible explanation for all the secrecy.
Definitely.
But I'm guessing there are actual laws
Uh-huh.
that back this up, right?
Absolutely.
Not just a general preference for keeping things quiet.
Yeah, there's a whole legal framework.
Okay.
There's something called 50 U.S. Code Section 3030,
Okay.
which specifically focuses on counterintelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and it lets agencies protect sensitive information related to national security.
So if they think that telling us details about these unexplained aerial phenomena,
Yeah.
or, UAPs as they call them,
Right.
if they think that revealing those details would risk national security,
Right.
they can legally stay quiet.
That's one way to look at it.
Wow.
And it gets even more,
Right.
serious with 18 U.S. Code Section 983. That actually makes it a crime to release classified information without permission.
So it's not just about keeping secrets. It's
Yes.
about potentially breaking the law.
Exactly. And it's not just about national security either.
Real?
Think about, what could happen if the government said something
Yeah.
that wasn't clear.
Uh-huh.
It could cause a lot of panic.
Yeah. Especially with social media these days.
Things can spread like wildfire.
Right.
I imagine a vague statement about something strange in the sky.
Okay.
Suddenly, you've got headlines screaming, alien invasion.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
So the government might be staying quiet to prevent that kind of widespread panic and misinformation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little mystery is better than a lot of chaos.
Right.
But wouldn't that also make people more suspicious?
It's a tough balance, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer.
Hmm.
But before we jump to conclusions about government cover-ups and all that,
Okay.
we should consider another possibility.
All right. I'm listening.
What if some of these sightings are much simpler than we think? What about drones, for example?
Drones.
Yeah.
You mean like someone's out there flying their toy helicopter at night?
Not exactly a toy helicopter,
Okay.
but think about how much drone technology has advanced.
True.
There are a ton of commercial drones,
Mhm.
even hobbyist ones, that can fly at night. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration,
Right.
they allow it under certain conditions.
Yeah. So you're saying some people might be seeing a totally legal drone
Yeah.
and thinking it's something, well, extraterrestrial.
It's definitely possible.
Mm.
And without clear information from the government,
Right.
it's easy to fill in the blanks with speculation.
That makes sense. But what about the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA?
Yeah.
Can't people just request information about these sightings?
FOIA is a great tool for transparency,
Right.
but there are exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, 5 U.S. Code, Section 552b1,
Okay.
allows the government to keep certain information secret
Hmm.
if it could harm national defense or foreign policy.
So even if someone filed a FOIA request to find out about the New Jersey lights,
Yeah.
the government could say no.
They could.
Hmm.
And they would argue that revealing details about how they monitor things
Yeah.
would put national security at risk,
I see.
and that would let them use that exemption.
It seems like a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got the possibility of advanced tech or maybe even something totally unknown.
Right?
But then on the other hand, there are these laws that allow the government to stay quiet.
It's a complex situation.
It is.
Where do we go from here?
That's the big question, isn't it? And while counterintelligence is definitely a compelling theory, we have to remember that some of these sightings might have much simpler explanations.
Right.
We've been focusing a lot on the government's perspective.
Yeah,
But maybe it's time to look at how all this secrecy affects the public.
I think that's a good point.
We'll explore that more in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. It's wild how technology and national security and what the public thinks
Yeah.
are all mixed up in this.
Yeah.
We're in this time where drones and all these unmanned things in the air
Right.
are getting so advanced.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what we can easily explain and what's still, out there.
It's almost like the more advanced we get,
Yeah.
the easier it is to misunderstand what we're seeing.
Right.
Like what one person thinks is a UFO
Mm-hmm.
could be just a high-tech drone to someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where clear communication from the government is so important.
Right.
But, like we talked about, there are reasons why they might not want to give us all the details.
Right. Balancing transparency with national security.
Exactly.
Earlier, we talked about how some of these UAP sightings could be connected to secret government projects.
Right.
Wouldn't all this secrecy backfire?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And it shows a tension that exists in any democracy. How do you keep things safe, but also stay transparent and accountable to the people?
Right.
It's a debate that's been going on forever.
Yeah.
No easy answers.
It's like a constant back and forth between the need to know and the need to protect. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that some of these sightings really are connected to secret government programs.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be better for them to eventually come clean, even if it's years later? Wouldn't that help rebuild some of that trust?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Revealing those programs could definitely help get rid of some of those crazy theories and show that they're not hiding something totally bizarre.
Yeah.
But even decades later, there's always a chance that disclosing that information could compromise sensitive technology or operations.
So it's a gamble either way. Stay silent and maybe people distrust you more.
Yeah.
Or reveal the truth and potentially risk national security.
Exactly.
Quite a dilemma.
It highlights how important it is to have strong oversight,
Yeah.
making sure the government's use of secrecy is justified and not over the top.
Right.
We need to balance protecting national security with the public's right to know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit and go back to our source material. One of the articles suggests a completely different approach to these tech mysteries.
Okay.
They propose creating a whole new department, a federal department of technology.
That's interesting.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
It shows that people are realizing our current government structure might not be ready for how fast technology is changing,
Okay.
especially when those changes affect national security and how the public sees things.
So we need a more focused approach,
Yeah.
one that's tailored to these new technologies.
Exactly.
Okay.
The source argues that a dedicated Department of Technology could help close the gap between the government and the public when it comes to these complex issues.
I see. Right.
They see it as like a central authority
Okay.
responsible for overseeing and evaluating and communicating about technological developments, including UAPs.
That's pretty ambitious.
It is.
How would such a department even work? What would their role be in situations like these New Jersey sightings?
Well, the source suggests this department would have a mandate for transparency. Their main goal would be to give the public clear, non-classified information about technological stuff,
Okay.
while still thinking about legitimate security concerns.
So that would be like a middleman
Yeah.
between the intelligence folks and us regular people,
Exactly.
trying to find that balance between secrecy and openness.
Right. Explaining things in a way that's both informative and reassuring without, putting national security at risk.
That sounds like a tough job.
It would be.
Yeah. But if they could pull it off,
Yeah.
it could really help rebuild trust and reduce all the misinformation out there.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And the source goes even further.
Okay.
They suggest having these departments not just at the federal level,
Right.
but also at the state county, and even local levels.
Wow, that's taking it to a whole other level.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind that?
It's about creating a more localized approach
Okay.
to overseeing and communicating about technology.
Mm.
They say these state and local departments could work directly with communities,
Right.
gather data on things happening in specific regions,
Yeah.
and even encourage innovation in how we monitor and deal with new technologies.
So it's like having tech experts all over the country working together to make sure things are transparent and accountable.
Right.
It's a pretty radical idea,
It is.
but I can see how it could be beneficial.
It shows that there's a growing understanding
Yeah.
that technology is becoming more and more important in our lives
Uh-huh.
and that the government needs to catch up.
It's almost like we're entering this new era where science fiction and reality are blending together.
Yeah.
And we need new ways of thinking and governing to handle it.
You got it.
Hmm.
These UAPs and how the government's dealing with them
Right.
are just one example of the challenges we're facing.
It seems like we need to find better ways to understand, talk about, and manage these advancements in a way that promotes innovation but also holds people accountable. Maybe a dedicated Department of Technology, as radical as it sounds, could be a step in the right direction.
It's possible.
Yeah, it would be a sign that the government is taking these things seriously
Right.
and wants to be more open and honest with the public.
It definitely gives us something to think about.
Yeah.
Whether or not this specific idea takes off,
Right.
it shows that we need to have a bigger conversation about how we as a society approach this whole mix of technology, national security, and public trust.
Yeah, that conversation is long overdue.
It is.
And as technology keeps advancing, the
Yeah.
stakes just get higher and higher.
For sure.
But let's get back to those New Jersey sightings.
Okay.
We've looked at some interesting theories,
Right.
like counterintelligence and the need for transparency. But what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
Are we any closer to figuring out what's really going on?
Unfortunately, we still don't know for sure what those sightings were. Without more information from the government, it's all just guesswork at this point. Right. But I think this deep dive has shown us something important.
Yeah,
The government's silence is a big part of the story.
it is, yeah.
Whether it's drones or experimental aircraft or something we've never even heard of.
Right.
The fact that the government is hesitant to give us clear answers just adds to the mystery.
Absolutely.
We're not done yet, though.
No.
There's one more piece to look at.
Okay.
The bigger implications of all this secrecy and speculation for our democracy and our future.
That sounds important.
It is.
Okay.
Stick with us as we take the final plunge into this topic.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
Counterintelligence, the possibility of secret government projects,
Right.
even the idea of creating a Department of Technology.
Mm-hmm.
But let's zoom out for a minute.
Okay.
Look at the big picture.
Yeah.
What are the long-term consequences of all this secrecy about UAPs?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because this isn't just about some lights in the sky. It's about trust and transparency and the balance of power between the government and the people.
So the way the government handles these UAP incidents could actually have a ripple effect on other parts of society.
Absolutely. When the government keeps withholding information,
Yeah.
even if they have good reasons,
Uh-huh.
it can make people suspicious and distrustful.
Right, like what else are they hiding?
Exactly.
And that kind of distrust can be really damaging, right,
It is.
to our institutions. It
Yeah.
makes it harder to deal with important issues.
Exactly. It's like a crack in the foundation of democracy.
Hmm.
If people don't believe the government is being honest with them,
Right.
it's really hard to have productive discussions about complex issues.
And that's especially worrying now
Yeah.
with all the misinformation and disinformation going around.
Ah.
When people are already skeptical,
Right.
it just fuels conspiracy theories and rumors.
Exactly.
So it's really important for the government to find better ways to communicate with us, even when they're dealing with sensitive information.
Right. Finding that balance
Right.
between protecting national security and respecting our right to know what's going on.
It's a tough balance, for sure.
It is.
But what if the government becomes too transparent?
Mm.
Could that compromise national security?
There's always a risk, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger risk is actually the opposite. Too much secrecy.
Okay.
It erodes public trust
Right.
and creates the perfect breeding ground for misinformation and those conspiracy theories we talked about.
So are you saying that the pendulum has swung too far towards secrecy?
I think so.
Right.
And this fascination with UAP is
Yeah.
a sign of
Mm-hmm.
that people want answers.
Mm-hmm.
They're frustrated that the government won't give them.
It's like a game of hide and seek.
Yeah.
The more the government hides, the more curious people get.
Exactly.
And that curiosity isn't going away anytime soon.
No.
It's probably just going to get stronger. As technology advances and the line between science fiction and reality gets blurrier.
Right.
So what can we do about it?
Mhm.
How do we break out of this cycle of secrecy and speculation?
There's no easy answer.
Okay.
It needs a change in how the government approaches transparency and how they engage with the public.
Right. Yeah.
We need leaders who are willing to be more open
Yeah.
and accountable to the people.
That's a tall order, especially these days.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's crucial for our democracy.
Okay.
We need to rebuild that trust
Right.
and help people become more informed and engaged.
Maybe part of the solution is creating new structures, like we discussed earlier,
Oh.
a Department of Technology.
That's one possibility.
Yeah, one that could handle the challenges we face in the 21st century. It could be. It would show that they're taking these things seriously
Right.
and are committed to being more open and honest with us.
Absolutely.
It's a goal worth working towards,
It is.
but also a difficult one because there will always be things that the government has to keep secret.
Right. For national security reasons.
Exactly.
The key is to be smart about how they use secrecy.
Hmm.
And to remember that in a democracy,
Yeah.
the people deserve to know what their government is doing.
Even if they can't know everything,
Exactly.
it's a balancing act.
It is.
But it's worth the effort.
For sure.
Because a strong democracy needs informed and engaged citizens.
Yes.
And that requires trust and transparency and being willing to have these tough conversations.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up this deep dive into UAPs and government secrecy,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. Never stop seeking knowledge. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions,
Right.
and look for different perspectives.
That's great advice.
The truth is out there.
It is.
Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight.
Sometimes.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and keep searching for those answers.